Hi BookTube, it is Nadine, and welcome back to Wiley Reading. I am glad you're here. So the month of May was a good reading month for me. I hope it was good for you. And the first 10 days or so I spent reading one book, which was Adam Johnson's The Wayfinder. And I did a whole video just on that book. And now I'm going to talk about the books that I read for the rest of the month, or 3 of them anyway. After finishing The Wayfinder, which was a 700-page book, I rebounded, as I often do, reading a bunch of smaller books. And I read 6, and after I read them all, I discovered that 3 of them were actually part of a series. So I'm going to talk about those 3 here. So the series is called The Darkland Tales, and it's published by a small or independent Scottish press, and they commission works from well-known Scottish authors dealing with some dark period in either Scottish history or Scottish legend. And so let me show you the publisher's page. So as you can see, there are 6 books in the series, and one is coming out soon. And the 3 that I read were Denise Minna's Rizzio, Columba's Bones by David Grieg, and Val McDermid's Queen Macbeth. The first book that I read in the series was Rizzio by Denise Minna, and it was published in 2021, and it's just a bit over 100 pages. And it tells the story of the assassination of David Rizzio in 1566. And he was the private secretary and a close personal friend to Mary, Queen of Scots. And he was killed in a kind of death of Caesar, Ides of March style assassination, where there was a large cabal of plotters, Protestant noblemen, including Mary's husband, and they each stabbed him and left him to bleed out and die in Mary's apartments. And she was 9 months pregnant at the time and ready to deliver any day. And she and her women had to kind of drag the body to the corner and clean it up as best they could. What I especially loved about this book is the intensity of it and the sense of being a fly on the wall, where without a whole lot of description, I mean, it's a very short book, you really felt like you were there, kind of seen into the hearts and minds of the primary perpetrators and all the argument and treachery and drinking that went behind the plotting. And the story looks at a few days before to a few days after, and it's very, very concentrated. I don't know if this is her first historical fiction, but I hope it's not her last. And the acknowledgments was actually kind of interesting too, a little bit of sign of her writing process, because she thanks the person who she sent the first draft to, who she said returned it with a, quote, resounding meh. So that's not what we came up with, so she did a lot of fixing and working. The next book I read was The Book of I, or Columba's Bones, and it is written by David Grieg, and this is his first novel, but he is a very famous playwright in Scotland, and I can really see this book as a terrific play, very easy to imagine. And it starts out in a dark place, but with a dark event, but it is very apparent right from the very beginning with the tongue-in-cheek writing and the characters and the names and all that, that this is going to be a more Monty Python-ish version of pillaging, and not quite as satirical as Monty Python, but along the same lines. We're not in for visceral blood here. And so the event that starts it all is a Viking raid on the Isle of Iona in 825 AD. And the island has very few people other than the monastery with all the monks. And so they arrive, and the monks are actually joyously happy to die as a martyr for Christ. So, and then when that's over, the actual story you come to see is really a kind of a found family story based on the 3 people who are left behind. And those are, first, Grimmer, who's one of the Vikings. He's an aging older Viking, and they thought he was dead, and so they buried him in a shallow grave, but he was actually just dead drunk. And then the other person is Una, and she's a farmer's wife, and Grimmer actually kills her husband, but she's thrilled with that because he was an awful brutal guy. And she makes a mead that is apparently delicious and extremely potent, and Grimmer loves that, and that is why he was dead drunk in the grave. And the last person is Brother Martin. And Brother Martin's a teenager. He's probably like 15 or 16. And he's actually very ashamed because he chickened out of martyrdom and hid underneath an outhouse. But he is saved because as he was walking along, he suddenly sees an arm shoot out of a grave, which was Grimmer, and he pulls him out, and now he thinks that his calling, he was spared so that he could continue the monastery. So that is the setup for this found family story. And the three of them grow and gradually grow closer to each other, and it's really a heartwarming story. I think this is going to be one of my books that I turn to for comfort, something short and heartwarming despite the murder in the beginning. The writing is always the most important thing about a book for me. And the writing, it doesn't necessarily have to be poetically beautiful, it just has to match the book itself. It can be very plain and terse, or poetic, or in this case, very tongue-in-cheek and amusing. So I just want to give you a couple of quotes from the book so you can get a sense of the writing. And, so the first one is a description of the Vikings as they are first arriving. The red-sailed wave horse galloped over the silver girdle of the island, sending spray and wild snorts in its wake. Helgi stood on the prow and looked eyeward. He liked attacking monks. He felt a swell of energy as he led his men towards a monastery, a surging confluence of the three great rivers of his soul, gold, gods, and going on raids. A Viking had to raid. It was the job, really. One didn't necessarily have to love the work, but Helgi did. And one more quote I have is a discussion between Brother Martin and a guy named Domhnall. And Domhnall is the leader of a group of men from the mainland who rode over to the island to save whoever was remaining. And this is Brother Martin explaining why he wants to stay and he won't get on the boat. I also will stay. Dear God, what now? The cry came from the little shit boy, the monk who had survived in the latrine, the one the men had taken to calling the stinky miracle. I will stay. Why? Sighed Domhnall. It is my duty to serve God in St. Colm and to honor Abbot Blathmac. God has spared me for a reason. God spared you because you hid in the shitter, Brother Martin. Even the Vikings didn't expect that. That from Callum, and Domhnall had to admit it was funny. The boy rose angrily and spread his arms like Christ. I spent a night alone amongst filth in the most abandoned place imaginable, with only the Lord beside me. The Lord Jesus kept me strong, and in return I made a promise to him that I would serve St. Colm, that I would never again abandon my faith in cowardice. I will not leave. That's one of those scenes that I can picture so easily in a play, and it also portrays Brother Martin so well, his innocence and his good-heartedness and his growing strength. I can just see him there in his poop-encrusted cassock, declaiming from the docks. The last book I read is Queen Macbeth by Val McDermid, and she is also a well-known crime writer. I don't read much crime, so one thing about this series, it's exposing me to writers I wouldn't normally find. And so, as you can imagine, this is a retelling, or maybe a fairer telling, of the story of Queen Macbeth, or in this book she uses her actual name, Gruach, Gruoch. So McDermid is rescuing Gruach from Shakespeare's depiction of her. The story is told in two timelines. The first timeline, the earlier one, is when Gruach meets Macbeth, they fall in love, and it's while she's married to a very brutal lord. The second timeline is many years later, after Macbeth has been killed in battle, and Gruach and her three best friends, are fleeing. And these are three women that she has grown up with. And the thing that I liked the best about this book was the relationship between the four of them. They knew each other so well. They were almost telepathic with each other. And they were really fascinating people in their own right. Kind of a rethinking of the three witches from Shakespeare's Macbeth, because each of them had a skill that was actually perfectly innocent, but could have led people to think that they were witches. The problem that I had with the book is it kind of had the early story and the ending story, but no middle. And the middle would be the reign of Queen Macbeth and Macbeth. I guess he was King Macbeth. And so it was odd. There was maybe one sentence that said that it was a long and happy reign, and that was it. So it needed some middle. And even more than that, the end, I thought the end just kind of didn't work. But in spite of all that, it is definitely worth reading. Your mileage may vary. And again, it was a fly on the wall kind of a thing. You really felt like you were there. So that's my 3 books in the series. Let me know if you've read any of them, or you want to, or anything that you're reading at the moment. I'd love to hear from you. And that's it. So be good, be kind, be well.